welcome everyone to another edition of Channel 1349. I'm your host, Will Judson, coming to you live from Houston, Texas, and I'm joined by my father once again for another episode. Dad, how's everything going for you down there in Atlanta?
Everything's going great. It's a little rainy down here, and actually, I'm a little outside of Atlanta. I'm actually 20 miles west of Atlanta in a town called Douglasville. But everything is going great. Just a little bit rainy, but I am ready to go.
How was your, even though I talked to you, I want to ask you again, how was your Christmas?
Christmas was great. I just spent time just with my mom. We had a nice little Christmas dinner, and we exchanged presents and just spent time together. So it was just a great time.
Yep, same here. I felt like Christmas morning I was spending a bunch of time, or really Christmas Day all day, putting stuff together. I guess that's one of the things you do when you have little kids.
Yeah,
My back was hurting and all of that from putting that stuff together, but I'm glad that's over with. My kids had a good Christmas, and so we're good to go.
that's what it's all about.
Yep. So as you know, we had an eventful Christmas, lots of NBA games, but more importantly, lots of NFL games. And before we kind of dive into what took place specifically with the NFL games, there's been a lot of talk with the NFL and the NBA. The NBA, I think they had like maybe 4 or 5 games this past Christmas Day, and the NFL had the 2 games. NFL streamed everything on Netflix this go round versus the NBA, who was on regular TV. Did you pay any kind of attention to the NBA games this year, or were you focused on the NFL?
I didn't watch not one bounce of NBA basketball, not one. And I saw at the end of the game when LeBron, the Lakers beat Golden State at the last minute. It was a very close game. LeBron said that, telling the NFL that Christmas is for the NBA. Well, NFL can have whatever holiday they want because the NFL's king.
The NFL could have every day. I mean, they could put something on every single day, and people will watch it. That's even outside of the regular season and the off season. We pay attention to the combine, the NFL draft, everything. So the NFL rules, and I think the final numbers, the NBA during its peak time on Christmas might have had around 5, 6 million views. I'll have to confirm that for sure. Compared to the NFL on Netflix, which is, I guess they had the advantage because it was Netflix is worldwide. The NFL averaged 24 million viewers during the week or during the day for Christmas. So I'm not sure people were watching those games from start to finish, being that Baltimore blew to Houston out, and then in the other game, the Steelers and the Chiefs blew the Steelers out too. But it was on all day, and so
Doesn't matter.
yeah,
NFL, it doesn't matter.
yeah, and I don't know if that. And I just want to ask you a question about that. Do you think my personal opinion is because number one, the NBA has so many games, so the games don't have as much emphasis as the NFL. The first reason, let me take that back. The first reason, the NBA is not better than the NFL by any stretch of the imagination. Football is just better than basketball to watch, in my opinion. But then when you tie in the fact that the NBA has 82 games and combine that with the fact that the players don't play every game. Like nobody wants to follow a sport where not on a consistent basis where you don't know if the star players are going to play every single day. So that's what I think is wrong with the NBA now. People talk about they're shooting too many threes, and it is egregious how many threes I see them shooting. But I think it comes down to the fact that these star players aren't playing every day. And if they make the players play the way they played back in the 80s, 90s, even the 70s, I think that would solve a lot of the problems. So how do you feel about that?
Well, first of all, NFL is number one. It's been number one for a while, and seems like it always will be number one. Number two is we're getting to the part of the season where it's playoff time, it's money time. So these games are very, very meaningful, and we're getting ready to see who's going to be playing in the playoffs, getting ready to try to go to the Super Bowl. So those are two very important factors. And like I said, the NFL just does not care. They will go up against any sport anytime. And, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, they went right up against college too. I forgot to mention the college football playoff. They killed the college football playoff last weekend or whenever that was they played those games. It wasn't even close. I know your daughter, my sister is really into college football, but I tell Whitney all the time, the NFL is king. That's where most of my focus is. So I thought that was crazy that it doesn't matter who the NFL goes up against, they kill them.
And most of the time, the NCAA, they didn't have a chance because they had some games that with some teams playing that I felt like shouldn't even have been in the playoffs. So those games were not competitive. They'll be a little bit more competitive this weekend, though.
All right. I agree. So let's go ahead and jump into these games for the contest. We'll start off with the contest. So first of all, where are you look? How are you looking as far as your record is concerned in Circa Millions? I know you're almost into the money. You're well ahead of me. You're near the top of the pack. How are you doing so far at this point in Circa?
Well, at this point in Circa, I'm my record is like 50 and 29, something like that, with two ties, 50 and 28 and two ties. So, I'm doing pretty well. And out of about 4,000 participants, I'm probably, I think, tied for like 127th place. So, got it looking for a big week now because if we can have a big week this week and a big week next week, should be in the money. I think that they pay the top 100 finishers. So hopefully after this week I'll be within that, and then after next week I'll really get paid.
Yeah, and I mean, for you, this is a dire time for you. You got to try to go at worst 4-1. Of course, you want to go 5-0, and these next 2 weeks, and that'll really get you in contention. But you got to take it 1 week at a time, or one game at a time. I
One
should say.
game at a time.
One game at a time. And so, what that does is kind of, well, first of all, let me tell you where I'm at as far as Circa is concerned. Right now, I'm sitting at 40 and 41, so I'm back under the quote unquote Mendoza line for betting. I'm right under 500, right? I'm sitting at 40 and 41, 49%. I'm tied for like, I think maybe 2,400 or something out of the 5,000. So, not ideal. I crept over that 500 mark, and then I finished last week going 1-4. So tough week for me, and I'm just trying to finish strong. We'll see, how I finish the rest of the year. And so that kind of takes us to the first game that we both took. We agreed on this one. We both took the Baltimore Ravens -5.5 Christmas week against the Houston Texans. To me, I text you. I told you, go ahead and get in the line. We say get in the line or get in the ticket window as if you're at the casino betting. When we saw this game was over from the first drive when I looked at it. The way Derrick Henry was running all over the Texans, that was an easy win that cashed really pretty much at halftime. We knew that was going to cash. What were your thoughts looking at the Ravens playing the Texans this past week?
Well, I just knew that seemed like the Texans are kind of locked into their playoff position. They'll win their division without a challenge. Indianapolis is kind of coming up second, and of course you've got Jacksonville and the Tennessee Titans. They're doing very, very well, and I just felt like the Ravens, they were tied with the Steelers, but the Steelers lost. And the Steelers, they were going to lose. The Steelers lost their game. So Baltimore just say like, hey, all we have to do is win. If we win this game, we're in first place. And they're not going to let it go. And they came playing on a mission. I just felt like it was just going to be, the game's going to be too much for the Houston Texans. They have some injuries at wide receiver. Tank Dell, he's out for the year, unfortunately. So I just felt like they were going to just wrap up Nico Collins, and it was going to be tough for him. So Derrick Henry came out running the ball. He was getting 8-9 yards a clip. So this man is a man. I don't know. There were a lot of teams that could have had Derrick Henry, and he just seemed to be a perfect match for the Ravens offense. And their defense played well. Houston only scored 2 points. And that was they got a safety. Derrick Henry ran. I was telling you when I saw that how he ran outside. What in the world? Just take it up there. Don't get a safety. And that was the only way that they scored. So really, the defense pitched a shutout. And I just felt like it would happen, and it did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the Houston Texans just are spooked, if they're seeing ghosts from when Derrick Henry played all these years with the Tennessee Titans coming into Houston. Just looking at this matchup, every time Derrick Henry came to town, he always plays well at NRG Stadium down here in Houston, and that continued this past week. Like I said, after the first drive, I'm actually in the fantasy football playoffs championship, and I'm facing Derrick Henry this week. And I just knew as soon as I saw what was going on, I said, this is about to be a long day. Baltimore did whatever they wanted. Lamar Jackson looks like, with how Josh Allen is starting to struggle a little bit towards the end of the year, Lamar Jackson is almost positioning himself to win a third MVP. Now, that doesn't mean that I care, because for me at this point, it's all about what are you going to do in the playoffs. But Lamar Jackson is looking good right now. And the Baltimore defense, as bad as they looked early in the year, they couldn't stop anybody as far as the pass was concerned. You could never run the ball in Baltimore, but it seems like they're hitting right they're hitting their peak right when they need to on defense. Zach Orr, Coach Orr, that's his name, the new defensive coordinator, young guy. He's got these guys playing on offense and defense, and they look like a team that could be serious in the playoffs. They could be a serious threat. I'm not going to say they're getting to the Super Bowl, but they look good right about now. And switching over to the Texans, I was telling you this. I like C.J. Stroud when he was in college. Once he came to the NFL, I was a little hesitant on him because I liked Bryce Young more than him coming out of college. And he surprised a lot of people last year. But it felt a little weird for Houston. They kind of snuck up on people last year in a bad division, and that's the same thing this year, except now everybody had their eyes on Houston, and it turned out, we're seeing that they're in a bad division, and they're just an average team. And when you think about the injuries to Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon has been banged up throughout the year. He hadn't been in the lineup every single game, and then they've had some injuries on defense as well. This is a team that looks like they have a first-class ticket out of the first round, and they won't go far in the playoffs. C.J. Stroud, he hadn't looked good. I don't know what's going on. He's been wildly inaccurate this year. I don't know if he's not setting his feet when he's throwing or what's going on, but he doesn't look like the same C.J. Stroud from last year. So hopefully he can improve his mechanics and get the ball where it needs to be, because the plays were there. They have a good offensive coordinator in Bobby Slowick, and he just has to make some throws and just sit in the pocket. Don't get his feet get too happy sometimes. I don't know if it's because he's scared of the rush or what, but he's got to get that under control.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be a tough year for him in the playoff. I don't see them going very far either. So he was a great player last year, and everybody thought he was going to take the next step, but it looked like he's taking a step backwards.
Yep. And so we both got the win in Circa. We both chose Baltimore for our first game at -5.5. Easy win for us, and so now we've got 4 games to go. Before we jump into our picks, let's go ahead and go over the Steelers and the Chiefs game briefly and talk about what we saw with Kansas City. Now, I'll start this one off. Kansas City, they knew if they won this game, they will wrap up home field advantage for the year, and that's exactly what they went out there and did. They had a couple of players that were out. Chris Jones, I know Isaiah Pacheco, he got hurt in the middle of the game, so he didn't play a lot. And a lot of people were on the Steelers this week, and Kansas City just went out and handled business. What did you see out there?
Well, I saw very much the same thing. I actually considered taking the Steelers in this game because I just felt like, they've got to keep winning and keep Baltimore off their tail, but they just got manhandled. I mean, Kansas City did what they had to do, and they're starting to, yesterday they clicked on all cylinders, so they're going to be a team to reckon with. Nobody's ever won 3 in a row, but they're looking awfully good because everybody has to come through Cincinnati. They've got a situation, though, that, meeting Buffalo.
Cincinnati or Kansas City. They got to come through Kansas City.
Well, they got to come through. They got to come through Kansas City. I'm sorry. Everybody got to come through Kansas City. And that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. And Kansas City's looking to win 3 in a row. and 3 Super Bowls. Never been done. They're looking really good right now. They're getting healthy. They're starting to click. And the kicker, I tell you what, I mean, he's kicking. At first he was having a few little issues. He was on injury reserve. Now he's back, so they're good to go.
Yeah, man. Patty Mahomes, he was banged up a little bit, but now he's going to get some time to rest. They've already clinched the first round bye, so he won't be playing next week along with Kelsey and some of those other guys that are veterans on that team. And so they're peaking right when they need to. They got that loss out of their system against Buffalo. And they showed a crazy stat the other day, which I just think is remarkable. They're one of 4 teams that have not gone over 30 points this year. And the company that they have, I want to say it was the Patriots, the Raiders, and it was one more team, maybe the Panthers or somebody like that. Could have
been the Panthers, right?
Yeah, it was like these teams.
All of them had won 3 or 4 games. That's it.
Yeah. But it's a classic example of Kansas City does exactly what they need to do when they need to do it to win football games. And so this is a team. I'm going to go ahead and say this right now. I'm a Brady guy, but I've been high on Patrick Mahomes since he was a rookie. I told you and Dexter, my godfather, I told y'all a long time ago when he came to the league, I like Patrick Mahomes. If they get it done this year, I think that Kansas City, you got to consider this as the best dynasty ever because nobody's ever done this if they can win it. But also, I don't care if he hadn't won 7 Super Bowls yet. I like Patrick Mahomes. I got to give him the GOAT status over Tom Brady if they win it this year. That's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, he's a I don't know if I'd do that, give him the GOAT status over Tom Brady, but he certainly is definitely in the conversation, and it's kind of like one of those Jordan and LeBron things, But, I can't argue too much because Patty Mahomes makes things happen. He really does. And it doesn't matter if he has great receivers out there or if he has just, a little above average receivers. He can get it done. If the running game, the running backs can be hurt. They've got offensive line issues a little bit. Those tackles that they have, man, they getting all those penalties and they're having some issues, having to have to move people around and it's tough, but they still get it done. And one thing that really helps them is, man, their defense, plays very, very well for them. So they've got one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. So, it's just one of those things that they're just a great organization from the head, from the owner all the way down to the head coach. So, they're a team to be reckoned with.
Yeah, man, he is the best. And as we saw last year, they didn't have anything on offense, so he turned into a game manager. He was a great game manager, and they won the Super Bowl. But he also can make plays when he needs. So I love the way he scrambles, and it just keeps the defense on its heels. And so right now they're going to be tough. Maybe Denver, not Denver, Cincinnati, not Cincinnati either. Excuse me. Maybe Buffalo can go in there and beat them. I honestly can't see Baltimore doing it, but from what I've seen from Lamar Jackson over the years, I can't see it. I would like to see Baltimore win it and go in there and beat them in Arrowhead, but I can't see it. If anybody's going to do it, I think it would be Buffalo.
Well, I don't know. I from what I saw from Baltimore yesterday, man, they look good. It's gonna be tough for them to stop Derrick Henry. If they stop Derrick Henry, then Mahomes is gonna do his thing. Then Lamar Jackson's gonna do his thing. So I just think that Baltimore's the team to beat them. Buffalo, they're good too. That's gonna be mighty interesting, but one of them probably gonna knock the other one off. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah, that Kansas City, by clinching that 1 seed, their path got a little bit easier. Baltimore and Buffalo are going to
deal with each other.
Yeah, they're going to deal with each other. And so this game, and we'll talk a little bit about it later, but this is a very important week for Buffalo. They have to win this game so they can keep that 2 seed and have to play Baltimore if they meet in Buffalo. So
right.
It's going to be interesting. So we'll go ahead and jump into the picks. We'll start with you. Saturday game, you're taking the Chargers -4 against the New England Patriots. Tell me a little bit about what got you to that point to take the Chargers on the road this week.
Well, I tell you, Jim Harbaugh, he's getting his team together, And I just think that they need to go in there and win this game. They kind of established themselves a little bit better last week, but this week, going up against a outmanned New England team in New England, which they played very, very well last week against Buffalo. And I know you took the points, all those points with Buffalo against New England. Yeah, you laid all those points, and it didn't work out because it's a rivalry game. But this is not a rivalry game. San Diego is coming across the country. They've probably been in New England probably since Friday night and just kind of getting acclimated to the weather a little bit. But I just think that the way that Jim Harbaugh, he plays a game, tries to play it very similar to his brother John Harbaugh in Baltimore. Just run the ball, play good defense, and win. And I think that they're going to, cause havoc for the young quarterback, Drake May. And I'm hoping that they can win by at least 4 points. But I just think the Chargers are just too physical of a team. New England is, young and, on the field, the athletes, and young as far as the coach is concerned. Coaches having a very, very tough year. So I expect the Chargers to go in there and just ramrod them.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins is actually coming back this week. They might try to ease him into it a little bit, but they do want to get him acclimated as they get ready to make their approach into the playoffs. But for me, this was a game where I needed to stay away. I will say this: you were able to catch the Chargers on Circa's book for the contest at -4. That number has already jumped up to -5.5. So we know what that is. Everybody's hammering the the Chargers, and so that's made that line increase. But for me, this was a stay away game, and this is why I'll say that. Buffalo, you talked about it. It was a rivalry game last week New England. It was a rivalry game against Buffalo, but they hung around with them. They played physical with them, and they fumbled. They turned that ball over. They had a chance to beat the Buffalo Bills, and New England is just playing hard right now. I don't like Gerard Mayo, so that's why I couldn't bet the Patriots. But some things that are kind of keeping me away from this game, and if you put a gun to my head, I would probably fade you, is because, number one, this travel scenario, I don't like it for the Chargers. They're a team that's a little immature in that sense. They do have a coach that can get them ready to play, but this travel scenario, it's one of the toughest west to east trips that the NFL has to offer. We know that Seattle, coming from way up there, is a little bit further, but this is a tough trip for the Patriots, or for the Chargers, especially playing on a Saturday, early Saturday morning, body clock. They're playing at 1 o'clock, so that's 10 a.m. West Coast time, so they got to be ready to go. And so when you think about that trip for the Chargers, just dating back over the last 10 games, we know Belichick and Brady were involved in this series before, but when you look at the last 10 games, the Patriots are 7-1 against the spread in their last 8 against the Chargers in New England, and then 7-3 in the last 10 in New England. So it's just it's a little. I know you don't go off of numbers and trends, but when I look at that particular trend, to me that's got something to do with the travel and the early 1 o'clock games. And so I don't know. We'll see how the Chargers play. The Chargers need to be hitting on all cylinders as they get ready to play in the playoffs. So maybe.
Oh, and absolutely. And they've got people breathing down their neck too. So they've got to play well. And I just think in this one, we talk about the X's and O's and Jimmys and Joes. I think the Chargers has the X's and O's, better coaching, and the Jimmy and Joes, better actually players. And they have to get over that hump, that playoff drought, and kind of peeing in their pants like they've been doing over the past few years. They got to get over that. Jim Harbaugh is bringing a brand new era into the the Los Angeles Chargers. So I just expect them to go out there and just play good, sound defense. If you play good, sound defense and keep Justin Herbert from in situations where he has to go win the game, I think we'll be fine. So that's why I'm taking the Chargers.
Okay. All right. And so we'll go ahead and move on to this next game. It's a game that we both agree on, and that's Cincinnati -3 at home against Denver. For me, this is pretty simple. Cincinnati is playing their best ball of the season right now. started out, and it might not be enough to get them into the playoffs. They need a lot of help from everybody, but I think that they're going to do what they need to do. They've got a head-to-head matchup with Denver, who's one spot ahead of them, and so I think what they're going to do is they're going to play well. Now, I will say this. I don't like the coaching matchup. I don't like Zach Taylor going up against Sean Payton. That's the first thing. Number two, Denver plays sound on defense. They got Patrick Surtain. I don't know if he's going to travel with Jamar Chase this week, but we'll see. Usually what they do is they'll put Surtain on number two, and then they'll double team the number one receiver. I don't know what they're going to do this week. I know T. Higgins is a little banged up for Cincinnati. And so for me, Cincinnati can't stop anybody on defense. So I expect this game to go over the total, and I think it'll be a shootout. But Bo Nix, that Denver offense is not as explosive as Cincinnati is, and so at the end of the day, I expect Bo Nix or the Denver offense to maybe make a mistake down the line in this game, and that'll give Cincinnati what they need to at least cover the 3 and win this game outright.
Well, here's a situation where Cincinnati is basically in the playoffs. You're in the playoffs now, Cincinnati. And what I mean by that is this. If you lose, you're definitely out. If you win, then, you've got a opportunity to come step on up and, something could happen for you. So they've got to win. They're at home. They're playing well. And it may be a shootout. But as long as they win that game 50-46 or whatever they need to do, at least win it by 4 points, then I think we'll be okay. Now, Sean Payton's an excellent coach, but I think maybe this game, the rookie, Bo Nix, I predict he's going to, not have a great game, and I expect Cincinnati to win. Hopefully they will by more than 3 points.
I agree. Denver's been getting a lot of their wins against teams that aren't necessarily playoff bound. So this is a game, like you said, it's a playoff matchup at this point. You got to win to stay in it. So we'll see what happens this weekend. I'm hoping that Cincinnati can help me stay over 500.
There we go. There we go.
What's your next pick?
My next pick is I've got Tampa Bay -8 over the Carolina Panthers. Now, this was a kind of tough one for me to pick, but I think the urgency of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should come alive in this game. Now, Carolina's been playing well. They're playing for their coach, and they're improving. Bryce Young he's having a much better year this year. But going into Tampa lost that game last week in Dallas, and that put the Atlanta Falcons ahead of them. And if they end up tying in the division, the Falcons and the Buccaneers, then the Falcons will go to the playoffs because they swept the Bucs this year. The Tampa Bay has to win this game. They're going to be motivated, and I think they're going to pour it on Carolina. They've got a good defense. They've got an offense that's clicking on all cylinders, with Mike Evans, and you got Baker Mayfield doing this thing. You got a couple of good running backs, and they're going to be trying to play hard because the Atlanta Falcons have a very, very tough game up in playing the Washington Commanders up in the D.C. area. So they're going to be motivated. I think they'll just kind of shut Carolina down. I know Chuba Hubbard's been having a great year. He's one of the best running backs in the league in breaking tackles. But Tampa Bay gang tackles, and I think Tampa's going to be clicking on all cylinders. Hopefully, they can win by at least 9 points. So I took Tampa Bay -8 over the Carolina Panthers.
Well, if anybody knows about laying big numbers against divisional opponents, it's me. And so this is a game, I learned my lesson last week with Buffalo and New England. It's a game that I would stay away from. Carolina has looked serviceable the last few weeks. They've played everybody close, including the Chiefs, went to overtime, and Tampa Bay the last time they played. So 8 points is a lot. I hope you can get it done. But personally for me, that number's too rich for me, so I'd have to stay away from that one.
Okay, well, I can respect that. So who you have next game?
I'm laying 6.5 against the Arizona Cardinals, and who I'm referring to is the LA Rams. For me, this is a matchup where I feel like it's a revenge spot for the LA Rams. And not only that, they are playing for playoff positioning. They're trying to keep that division and go ahead and wrap it up. And when you look at what happened the last time they played early in the season, the Cardinals absolutely killed the Rams. I think they played in week 3, and the Cardinals beat them 41-10. But when you go back and really dig into that game, the Rams had a ton of injuries, especially up on the offensive line. And at that point, through the first quarter of the season, 4 or 5 games, 5 games actually, the Rams were 1-4 with a ton of injuries. And since then, if you look at the LA Rams, they've won 8 out of their last 10. So they've turned it on when they need to. And I love the head coaching matchup. Sean McVay, the head coach and quarterback combination. I'm taking Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford all day against Gannon. I don't even know his first name. I know it's Jonathan. That's what it is. Jonathan Gannon and Kyler Murray for the Cardinals. Don't get me wrong. The Cardinals have exceeded expectations. They've had a good season, but they're not quite there yet. You talk about it all the time. Jimmy's and Joe's, and the Cardinals just don't have the personnel right now to take that next step and win. So we'll see what they do over this next year, drafting and continuing to build that team the way they want to. But for me right now, the Cardinals, they've already been eliminated. When they lost last week, they were basically eliminated from the playoffs, and so, well, they are eliminated. So that was a nail in the coffin. They really don't have anything to play for at this time when the Rams have everything to play for. So I'm going to lay the 6.5.
Well, I tell you what, I couldn't touch that game because, Arizona, sure, they're out of the playoffs, but they would love to spoil it for the Rams. And I do expect the Rams to win this game. If it was a money line thing, I'd take the Rams. But I think Sean McVay, he'll be just as happy to get out there with a 3-point win, so I couldn't take that risk. Now, hopefully for you and for us, definitely they need to win by more than 7. But Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. and, man, those jokers could, matter of fact, just go crazy. So I was just a little leery of taking that. I thought about it, but I said, nah, I can't do it. Can't do it.
Yeah, well, for me, the Cardinals' offense hadn't looked good the last few games. They have not been scoring. So I expect this to be a game where the Rams kind of just dominate it, run the football, get control of the game, and hopefully they can cover that 6.5. So,
okay.
Up next, what you got?
Well, the only thing I've got left is the Detroit Lions, and both of us took this game, -4, going out to San Francisco. Now, that's going to be a very interesting game, but the reason I took the Lions is that the Lions have to keep pace with the Minnesota, because Minnesota has a game against Green Bay, which I think can go either way. So they're going to have to be clicking on all cylinders. San Francisco is out of the playoffs, and they've got a few injuries. So, and Detroit, even they have some injuries too. But the way that they looked last week, I think they're going to be ready. And plus, there's a little bit of a revenge factor last year, in that, playing against San Francisco, trying to go to the Super Bowl when Detroit actually should have won that game, and San Francisco actually beat them. So I think they've got something to prove. I expect them to go out there and blow them out and put Shanahan and the 49ers out of their misery. Now, of course, Shanahan, anything can happen, but I actually think the Lions need to do very, very well because they have a shot at being the number 1 seed. And in order to do that, they've got to win this game because Minnesota's breathing right down their back.
Yeah, I'm right on board with you with Detroit at -4 against the 49ers. This is a game, though, that it's, just thinking about it when I bet it, I said, I hope the 49ers won't just come back to life against the Niners, because when you think about this, and I'm a historian, the 49ers have always dominated the Lions. That's just something that they've done. I don't even think I was born back then. I think it might have been around like 1983 or so. Do you remember that playoff game where that SEC announcer, Gary Danielson, went out there for the Lions and threw those 5 picks against the 49ers? Do you remember that?
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah.
It's just, The 49ers have always dominated the Detroit Lions. It's like they have that mental edge over them. And so I just hope that this isn't a game where that happens. Detroit has a lot of injuries on defense. You talked about that. And the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan in particular, still knows how to scheme up a good offense. So I expect this game to go back and forth. Again, just like the game we talked about earlier, the Broncos and the Bengals, I expect this to be a high-scoring game, but the Lions to do enough to come away with at least a 4-point victory against San Francisco. I know Trent Williams is out for San Francisco. They have a few injuries, Christian McCaffrey, etc. So I think the Lions still have enough horses on offense to move the ball and get that win because, like you said, they have to keep winning to keep their hopes alive in the playoffs.
And I was impressed with the performance of the Lions last week. You know, everybody's talking, oh, you better beware, you know, but they went out there and they just took it to them. So I expect the same thing. That coach is a great motivator. And I just think that the 49ers, especially the way that they played last week down in Miami, you know, I was afraid to take that game, but Miami, you know, kind of beat them. You know, it wasn't that close. I mean, but it was, you know, somewhat competitive. But I expected them to show well. I remember you said something about Mike McDaniel being Mike Shanahan's understudy. He was going to show him a thing or two, but that didn't happen. So I expect Detroit just to go out there and just show your muscle. Just go on and just take care of that game early. Goff has an outside chance now of being NFL MVP, and you know, so you know because he's had a special year too. So I'm just looking for the Lions, and hopefully when that game starts, it's a Monday night game, right? It's Monday night, isn't it? Hopefully that game is, you know, I'll be 4-0 looking at that game because that was a great feeling. Even though I was 2-1-1 going into the Monday night game when the Packers were playing. And I just felt so sorry for the Saints going up there, you know, in that cold weather. They looked real, real bad. And when that game started, I said, well, 3-1-1. So hopefully it'll be 4-0. And the same thing will happen, can be 5-0 with the Lions taking care of the Niners.
Yeah. The Lions should, like I said, the Lions should be able to move the ball. The 49ers defense is giving up at least 29 points in 3 of their last 5 games. So they're not hitting on all cylinders like they were early in the year. So I like the Lions this week.
Right. And you have the last game that we need to pick, and that's, boy, it's a tough one. I don't see how you took that one. This can go either way. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm taking the Green Bay Packers in Minnesota in that dome. I can't remember the name of that dome right now, but I like Green Bay to go in there and get a victory. I'm taking the Packers +1 against the Vikings. This is a game, when you look at their earlier matchup at Lambeau, Green Bay came out in the first half. I think that was Jordan Love's first game back from his early season injury, and he looked rusty. They came out and turned the ball over maybe 3 or 4 times early in the first half, and Minnesota jumped out to a huge lead. But then once the Packers settled down, they made it a game, and I think Minnesota might have ended up beating them by like 2 points, 1 or 2 points. So Green Bay came storming back, and I think the same thing will happen this week, but this time they're not there. Jordan Love is playing lights out. He hadn't turned the ball over in, I can't remember the last, at least a month or two. So Green Bay is hitting on all cylinders. We saw what they looked like against the sorry Saints this week, but it's impressive to be able to shut a team out. They're running the ball down your throat with Josh Jacobs. And Jordan Love didn't really have to do too much last week because they were dominating that game on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And so for Minnesota, I think they've won 8 in a row now themselves. But I'm just going to – they didn't look all that impressive. I think they played the Seahawks this past week. Mm-hmm. They didn't look great out there. Seattle's a tough place to play. But I do know, and you don't really want to base this off of mutual opponents, but I do know the week before, Green Bay went out there and just manhandled Seattle in a night game. So to me, the Packers, they just look like the better team. And this is the game where Green Bay needs to start to get some confidence. Because if you look at their schedule this year, they have lost to nothing but good teams. But again, they haven't beat Minnesota. They haven't beat Detroit. They lost to Detroit twice. And so this is a game, especially as they get into the playoffs and they progress toward the playoffs, they need to start beating good teams. And so I think this will give them a lot of confidence going into the playoffs if they can beat Minnesota.
Well, that's a game I had to stay away from because they're playing at home. And I did not want to see all those fans doing this. They're starting to do that V thing. That horn, I didn't want to, I couldn't deal with that. So if I would have taken that game, it probably would have been Minnesota. But I had to stay away from it. And that is a tough one. 1 point can go either way. I tried to pick teams that I thought were, games this week that they had to win and they had a purpose. Well, both of these teams need to win. Where a lot of the ones that I picked, only one needed to win. But hey, I'm gonna be pulling for you, brother.
I appreciate it. Yeah, the Packers opened up as underdogs, and now all of a sudden, I think that the line has changed to where they're favored now. Let me check it. Yeah, on one book I see Minnesota still at -1, but I've seen it going back and forth between the Packers -1, Vikings -1. So that'll be
okay.
That might be the game of the week, but I'm looking forward to that game.
Gotcha.
All right, so now we've gotten to the part of the show where we just go straight down the list, picking money lines for each game. So for those of you who are in a pick'em contest, this is the equivalent to that. And so we both know that we're both on the Chargers. You picked the Chargers in the contest. I think the Chargers are going to win that game. I'm just not sure what'll happen with the spread, but I like the Chargers, and so do you. We both like the Bengals this week in Cincinnati on Saturday against the Broncos. And then now we'll jump to the Rams game. I like the Rams. I picked them in the contest. What about you? Rams or Cardinals?
Well, if we're talking money line, then I'm going with the Rams. There's no way I'm gonna take the Cardinals. They're out of it. But hey, could happen. Anything can happen. But I take the Rams.
All right, I'm gonna take a bit of a turn on this one and be different and go against the grain, because when you think about pick'em contests, when you're just picking the game straight up, you want to kind of go against the grain. And so when I look at this Jets and Bills game, Aaron Rodgers, even though they're out of contention, he's actually playing for his job. We don't know if Woody Johnson is going to bring him back next year in New York. He's also, if he's not going to play with the Jets, I'm not sure any NFL teams want him right now because of how much of a diva he is. So I think this is a game where maybe they can do as the Bills do and circle the wagons and win the game this week. So I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to take the Jets as a Jets money line this week against the Bills.
Well, there's no way. I'm going to take Buffalo because they've got to keep winning too. Buffalo doesn't have, if they have a shot at the number 2 seed, they've got to win. And another little contest that we're in, you took Buffalo, you clean swept them, didn't you? So that's why I don't understand why you're going against Buffalo on this one. But hey, you have to do what you got to do.
You don't know what I did. I just told you that.
Okay, all right, but hey, it is what it is. Buffalo's going to win this game. Trust and believe.
Okay, so moving on to the next game, I'm going to take the Saints at home. The Raiders, they're coming off that win last week. I told you they were going to beat the Jaguars, and they're riding high. And so I think this week they'll come crashing back down to earth against the Spencer FAMU Rattler-led Saints.
Well, if you put a gun to my head, you'd have to put a bazooka. I don't know, man. I have to pick the Saints only because the Raiders messed up their chance to get Shedeur Sanders by winning the game that they did against Jacksonville a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, I guess I go with Spencer Rattler, man. I tell you what, he didn't look well last week. He looked, decent the week before that, but that's a tough one. Two teams that not really playing for anything. Come on, this is, oh man, no, I have to take it.
That's a fairly long trip for the Raiders coming across the country.
That ain't that far.
It's in the middle of the country, but
right.
you're going in a different time zone. Your body clock, they're not going to come up here 2 days early, so that can catch you a little bit. But not only that, typically in professional sports, when you play it, when you look as bad as you looked in the previous week, they're professionals. They tend to play a little bit better. So I'm leaning on that, and they got a chance to win against the Raiders this week. So
Okay,
that's
we'll
my
see.
main reason. All right, so moving on to the next game, the Colts and the Giants. After what the Giants did to me when I took them in the contest last week, they look like the worst team in the league, and they've completely quit. So I don't like Anthony Richardson, but I'm going to take the Colts this week against the Giants.
Well, you just say typically when a team plays bad the week before, they're going to be professionals. So, I hear that Anthony Richardson, has some injury issues, shoulder and knees, but I think he probably will play. I'll have to take the Colts on this one, but I'm not real confident in it, but I'll take the Colts.
Yeah, and the key word, I said typically these teams play better the next week. But when you look at the Giants, they look like they have quit. They're not even playing hard. At least the Saints are trying to play. Now, they look like they quit a little bit last week against Green Bay in that cold. But for the most part, every week the Saints play hard. So this is just a completely different animal with the Giants. I can't back them in any stretch or measure.
Okay, I agree.
All right, so Jalen Hurts was ruled out this week for Philadelphia. And so this is a tricky game. CeeDee Lamb is out for the Cowboys. If CeeDee was playing, I might even take the Cowboys, but I'm going to stay away from that, and I'm going to go ahead and take the Eagles playing at home in Philadelphia because they're still trying to play for the 1 seed as well.
Eagles will do what they have to do to win that game. Now, this was one game that I started to take for Circa because I think it was -9.5 or something. But and then find out that Jalen Hurts is not playing. Oh man, that was one of the ones that I thought seriously about taking. I think that Philadelphia's gonna win, but I don't think they're gonna win by 9.5 points. No, I think it might be a field goal game.
I'll say this: that they better win. As much fuss as Kenny Pickett raised this offseason in Pittsburgh, who does he think he is demanding a trade? Because they brought in Russell Wilson. I mean, he's just that was a petulant child type of move, what he pulled in Pittsburgh. So now that he's in Philly and he's a backup quarterback, this is his time. They lost that game to the Commanders last week. They need to win this week in Philadelphia, or he's going to hear from the fans. He's going to hear from
I agree.
The Carolina Panthers and Tampa Bay, I think this is simple for me. I'm taking the Buccaneers. They're in a must-win situation. So I'm not laying 8 points with them, but I think they'll win.
Yeah, I think that's an easy one for us. Also, hopefully it'll be an easy one. But yeah, so I'm taking the Bucs in that one.
All right, we got 2, 3, and 12 teams. The Titans and the Jaguars playing down there in Duval County this week. I'm just going to go ahead and roll with the home team and the slightly better quarterback, Mac Jones. I'll take the Jaguars this week.
Well, I'll also take. Well, I'll take the Jaguars. That's all I need to say. I'll take the Jaguars in this game. They're at home. I hate to even take them since they, didn't do what they need to do against the Raiders for me. But I'm going to go ahead and take them because Tennessee is just – and if Will Levis starts at quarterback, then I really take him. So.
Yeah, he shouldn't be starting anymore. I think Mason Rudolph is in there. And, I mean, they actually have some weapons. Tony Pollard, believe it or not, he's over 1,000 yards already this season. They got Calvin Ridley. They got a few weapons, but it's just the Tennessee Titans. I'm not taking them in Jacksonville, so I agree with you. This game coming up in Cleveland with Dorian Thompson-Robinson starting at quarterback for the Browns going up against the Dolphins. It's actually going to be a pleasant day in Cleveland, Ohio in late December. It's supposed to get up to like 57 degrees with a low of 40. Man. So that's perfect for the Dolphins. That's perfect for the Dolphins. I should have took the Dolphins in the contest, to be honest. But I expect the Dolphins to go in there and handle business, and I'll take them on the money line.
I'll take them on the money line also, but I'm not sure if they're going to cover. As long as they win the game, and that's what we're doing now, money lines. So I'll take the Dolphins over Cleveland. Cleveland is just trash. So, hey.
Oh, man. Yeah, since Dorian Thompson-Robinson, since he's been in the league, started, I think, 4 games, the Cleveland Browns in those 4 games that he started have totaled 35 points. So that tells
That
you that
that
tells
is
you how you need to.
that's utterly ridiculous, and and to start the quarterback they're starting over your guy Jameis Winston, that just shows the state of the Cleveland Browns. Don't bow down and blink your eyes like that. That is your guy Jameis Winston, and guess what? They're gonna have Deshaun Watson back next year because he restructured his contract. He's ready to go. He's trying to show him, look, you know what? I help everybody out because I'm a team guy. But that's next year. But maybe Jameis Winston may not even be with the team next year. You think?
Listen, a couple things with that. First of all, it's the Cleveland Browns. We know what they're doing. They are the most analytically based team in the league. They are trying to give themselves every chance to get as high a pick as possible because guess what? Now that the Texans are done ripping them off in that trade, they have their first round pick this year. So they're tanking. That's why he's in the game. That's the first thing. Number 2, who wouldn't want to restructure $170 million left that's guaranteed to you? It doesn't matter how it gets paid. He can restructure it. He's getting all that money. So, of course he's going to restructure his contract. Why wouldn't he? He's getting it all.
Well, the thing about it is we don't know what the restructure is, but, in any way, shape, or form, $230 million is $230 million. Now, he may be getting a signing bonus as part of that, and so that his cap number would be lower to kind of help him out. But he needs to do something.
They stretched his contract out to like 2028 or 2029 now, so it makes the salary cap hit a little bit lower, so they can re-sign players. But if I was in Cleveland, I wouldn't want to play with him. He has completely gone downhill since he got up there.
Okay. Well,
So moving on to the next game, we know how I'm leaning with this one. Up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, I'm going to take the Packers on the road to get it done at U.S. Bank Stadium.
I'll take the Vikings on this. I just think that, man, I love the quarterback. I love the coach. I love all the wide receivers. And I love
Sam Darnold?
Yes, I do this year. Not necessarily. He's going to make the Pro Bowl. You do realize that, right?
Yeah, I know he will because I know Tyler Huntley made it for the Ravens a couple years ago.
Yeah, but I tell you what.
The Pro Bowl is a joke, but keep going.
But Darnold is having an outstanding year. As a matter of fact, he's going to cause them to have a dilemma a little bit next because they really wanted to start, a rookie quarterback from Michigan. What's it? I can't remember his name.
J.J. McCarthy.
J.J. McCarthy. Yeah, they wanted to start him, but he got injured. So Minnesota's going to come through. Jefferson, they got Jordan Addison. That crowd is something else, something special. And I think it'll be a little too much for Jordan Love.
Well, let me ask you something. That's an interesting point you pulled up. Who would you take in the Pro Bowl? Jared Goff or Sam Darnold?
Well,
it's nothing to think about.
No. I probably would take Jared Goff, but it really doesn't even matter though because they're playing flag football, so it don't really matter either one of them.
Who would you take, Sam Darnold or Jaden Daniels, if you're picking the Pro Bowl?
Oh, Jaden Daniels.
Okay, that's 2 quarterbacks. Who would you rather have, Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield in the Pro Bowl?
Well, we're gonna go with that. That's where we draw the line. Even though Baker's had a good year, Sam Darnold, because his team has run all those games in a row, and they're gonna make the playoffs when possibly Tampa Bay may not.
That's a tough one now. I mean, Baker Mayfield has more touchdown passes. He's thrown for more yards. That's a tough one. Okay, who, Jalen Hurts or Sam Darnold?
That would be a tough one, but maybe Jalen Hurts, maybe. But then again,
It's not,
that's a
well,
tough one.
all I'm saying is it's not as easy as you would think. Sam Darnold has had a good year, but there's going to have people that pull out, and he'll get in there because they're not going to the Super Bowl, so he'll be able to play in there. Okay, moving on to the next game, the Falcons and the Commanders. I'm going to take the Commanders in this game. The Falcons. I'm going to take the Falcons on the road. I know it's a tough spot. It's a Sunday night game, but they're in a must-win situation. Washington is almost just about in the playoffs, so I think the Falcons have a little bit more to play for. Michael Penix didn't have to do too much last week. I expect him to play a little bit cleaner this week, and I think this will be a shootout too. And I don't really like what I've seen from the Commanders. They got out of there with a win against the Eagles last week, but they have kind of come back to earth this year. So I'm going to take the Falcons this week.
Well, you know what? My heart says the Falcons, but my head says the Commanders. So I'm going to probably end up going with the Commanders. I want the Falcons to win badly, but I'm just not real sure exactly what we're going to get from Michael Penix, especially in a meaningful game like this one. Now, last week against the Giants, the defense played tremendously well.
2 pick sixes.
If the defense plays, similar to what they played last week, then the Falcons will win because the running game has been clicking. Bijan Robinson, been doing a great job. And Michael Penix gives them a quarterback that's got a little bit more athleticism, a little bit mobility, and it could come through. So, like I said, probably picking the Commanders, but I'm hoping the Falcons will win.
All right, we agree. Well, I took the Falcons, but you're picking the Commanders,
right.
So we're different on that one. So, all right, and then moving down to this last game, we kind of already know because we talked about how we both took the Lions in the contest. So, no brainer for me. I'm taking the Lions money line.
Same thing. The Lions have to win this game, and I think they're very, very motivated because they're still pissed off because they didn't beat the 49ers last year to go to the Super Bowl.
I agree. It's going to be a great day tomorrow for the NFL, and then we got college football coming around. So what we'll do is before those games start for college football in the college football playoff, we'll launch another show, just a college football playoff edition, and we'll talk a little bit more about those games. But we're going to focus this week on the NFL. So it was a great show, and looking forward to next week. And we're signing off live from Channel 1349. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. That's Channel 1349. Take care.
Take care.
Deep looking for Judson. Got his